Religion's like sex. I mean, people should do whatever works for them and avoid what they don't like and be discreet about their views and respect the views of others.
Okay. I just felt the ratings go up.
Okay, wait. Did you wear something green the last time you saw him? Is this correct? Were you in green? A green sweater? Green.
I did.
It was a green sweater. It was the last time he saw you, right? Green sweater.
Are you secretly knighted somewhere? How do you become the prima ballerina?
It actually doesn't exist.
From the Zoomerplex in historic Liberty Village, The Zoomer with Conrad Black and Denise Stoneman.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to The Zoomer. Today, angels, near-death experiences, and the hereafter.
And Denise, you have a conversation with the angelic Kain.
I do, the artistic director of the National Ballet of Canada. So this week, when I told people what we were talking about, angels, everybody had a story, right? Oh, this one time my Aunt Rose, or yeah, my dad when I was. It doesn't matter if you're religious or spiritual or just plain alive. This is a really a great subject that fascinates everybody. Let's tee up the topic.
It's said that angels carry out God's tasks. They are God's messengers.
He doesn't like starch and he wants it on a hanger.
Angels are also excellent trumpet players. 67% of Canadians believe in angels. 70% believe in the afterlife. 27% believe in reincarnation. 49% think hell is for real. 25% of Canadians also believe in Bigfoot. In 2013, the Vatican angelologist sparked a spirited debate when he proclaimed angels don't have wings. They're just shards of light. Angels exist in most major religions, including Buddhism, Hinduism, and Judaism. Christians and Muslims have adopted the Jewish Hebrew angels Gabriel, Michael, and Raphael. Belief in the life after is higher among younger adults than Zoomers, and more widely believed by women than men. Wherever you sit on the issue, remember, guardian angels always sit on the right.
Well, this is your gig, Denise, but I will try to be your wingman.
Yeah, oh, very good. In fact, you've got my seldom used right wing, I think. Here.
Well, I'll give it a workout.
Well, we've gathered some very wise folks around the round table today with a variety of experiences in this realm. And I want to start with you, Conrad, because the notion of the angelo custode, right, the guardian angel, I mean, you're a man of faith. Is that something you believe?
I am on that issue somewhat of an agnostic.
Oh, really?
You know, it's there and it's in the culture and great writers like Milton and so forth. But we don't. I'm not absolutely sure that there's really much evidence of this.
You'd get the same answer from many Christians. The whole notion of a guardian angel is really extra biblical. So I think you'd get a much more positive response from people who are perhaps casually observant of some kind of faith, but to talk to an actual Christian, most of them would say, no, guardian angels, they're not. Really? There's no guardian angels in the Bible.
John, you've just written a book called The Angel Effect, You're Never Alone. So do angels exist? In what form do they take?
Well, I mean, I do believe that something, a sense presence experience, an experience that appears to be an angel does exist. I think there's plenty of evidence. I think that these are real lived experiences. I don't think the people that are describing having these experiences are inventing things. I think that they've actually experienced something quite profound. Now the question is, what's the origin of that experience? Is it a truly spiritual experience, or is it something that relates to, their brain? Right. Is a neurological response to stress that they're feeling in their lives? Patricia, I mean, your book is just about to come out, Opening Heaven's Door, and you've done a ton of research, talked to all kinds of people who've had near-death experiences, who have talked to people who have dearly departed, etc. What do you think? Because I think you went in as a skeptic and came out in a different way.
Well, I mean, in terms of angels specifically, what you see is you see people having these experiences across different platforms of, sometimes they're in stressful situations, sometimes they're on the deathbed, sometimes they're just depressed, sometimes they're just having a shower, and they will have an experience that in some cases is what the theologian Rudolf Otto called the numinous experience. So there's a quality to the experience that tells them that this is a different order of reality. So there's something in the confines of the experience itself that is almost untranslatable to report on to others, and that's where we get stuck in the dialogue, because
we get stuck in the definition. I think that's, one would not think me to be skeptical given what I do for a living, and I am one that remains curious. I think that we get trapped in the language and the limitations that we place on it. I believe the numinous is numinous, and the labels are what confuse us all and what brings us into an argument as well. I believe that there are spiritual forces, and I don't think any of us know how to label the mystery.
Ronnie?
Nothing is absolutely certain, but as certain as anything is that once the brain is dissolved, all consciousness cannot exist. And therefore, there cannot be such a thing as a disembodied brain. Furthermore, it seems to be bizarre that people who believe in an omnipotent God should need to believe that God needs messengers, God needs agents to go ahead and do stuff. I mean, of course people have experiences of this sort, and people have experiences of having gone through the gate of death and seen what's on the other side, but of course, by hypothesis, they've come back to tell us. And if they've come back to tell us, it means they weren't actually dead.
Well, I just did a reading for these ladies over there and brought through this woman's brother who had committed suicide and got extremely accurate information for them. And they will tell you that I didn't make that up.
Amber, you've had tangible experience as working in a hospice as a nurse for many, many years with people who are dying, where the encounters with the dearly departed or angels, if you were, have there been experiences like that you've encountered?
Absolutely. Often when clients are dying, we'll see, as they are dying, we'll see an arm raise up, and it's not an arm that would go like this. It's the open palm. It's the reaching. It's the reaching for something. How do you explain that? Are they seeing somebody? I think so. I think in my own personal experience, when my mother was dying, I would go to visit her, and she would say, "Oh, don't sit in that chair. Your father's coming right back." And my father had predeceased her by many years, but she believed in all she was that he had come to visit her. And who am I to say that he didn't?
Patricia, in your research, it is the case, is it not, that a great deal of the investigation that has been conducted of alleged apparitions and things is very rigorous and very exacting?
Yeah, it is extremely rigorous. Yeah. And actually, that really surprised me, was that the kinds of research that has been done in this area, in some ways, because there's so much skeptical assault all the time, the researchers, the psychiatrists, the cardiologists, and so on that do this kind of research have to be extra careful and think. John, do you know whether, at one point I read that the double-blind placebo, no, what's it called, random control thing?
Random control. Placebo effect.
That was actually designed by parapsychological researchers because they needed that level of resilience.
Definition. Yeah. It's only been in the last few hundred years when we started to say, oh, that can't possibly be true, and I need scientific evidence for that. I mean, religion, almost every religion refers to angels.
In Christianity and Judaism and Islam, you would have record of angels. Reason being, most of those faiths are all closely related, Judaism first, then Christianity. There would be some who would say, it's unfortunate we don't have a Muslim representative on the panel, but in terms of an awareness of the supernatural, it cuts across almost all of human experience.
Almost any tradition, recorded tradition, will have something that resembles an angel that you can identify as an angel, or call it what you will. Even the atheists will recognize it. A sense presence experience is something that people are capable of having.
Lots and lots of children have imaginary friends.
Indeed, they do.
And it doesn't mean that we have to think that somehow the imaginary friends are real.
I think it's the angel effect. I think it's an early manifestation of a phenomenon that people experience when they're confronted with great stress in their lives, where they feel that an external being is aiding them. They have a friend, so call it imaginary, if you will.
Yeah. It makes a difference whether these friends are in fact imaginary or whether or whether they're somehow a reflection of some reality which exists outside.
But
of
we
these
don't
people's
have the
experience.
science to say that they are imaginary friends. That's the problem that you have, is you're engaging in promissory materialism. So you're engaging in the idea that the promise that the brain will reveal to be the complete story of everything.
Well, no, it's not merely a promise. I mean, you can
induce.
people have induced out-of-body experiences, they've been induced just by stimulation of the brain.
Yes, but John and
Many
I
of
have
the
both
experiences
looked
in
at that
question. I'm sure
research,
it's
and
in your
very
book.
rudimentary. It's very rudimentary what
Well,
they've
it's
done.
a beginning.
Kit, you've been a nurse for many years, and you teach a course on death, dying, and bereavement. What do you make of the idea of the existence of angels?
Personally, I don't believe it, but that doesn't have anything to do with anything, because I'm caring for someone else. But someone who is extremely close to death, we have to consider all of the biological things that are happening to them at that particular time. There are strong medications being given in large quantity. The patient, even without these strong medications, their body chemistry is changing. What is that doing to their brain? And is it that is making them see these apparitions? Right?
Except if I can just interject, what I'm writing about in the angel effect are people who are healthy, normal people, and yet all of them describe a sense of an externalized being that's assisting them, that's helping them through the stresses that they're confronting. So I think it's quite different from what you're experiencing.
The world of art, of course, is full of paintings depicting angels, but nary a glimpse of an idea gets by in our consumer society without commercializations, and angels are no different. So have a look at this and stay with us. After the break, Communications from Beyond.
Girl, you're my angel, you're my darling angel. Closer than my peeps, you are to me.
Decisions. Which Philly dip? Jalapeno, it's wicked. No.
Any documented occasion when some Yahoo claims that God has spoken to them, they're speaking to me. Or they're talking to themselves.
How do I know you're an angel?
What, you mean aside from the fiery entrance and the expansive wingspan? You want more proof? Fine. How about tequila?
Years ago, 4:30 in the morning, November 10th, 2008, I woke with severe back pain. And it was within an hour or so of that time that I had a grand mal epileptic seizure and I was gone from this world. And this slowly spinning white light with a perfect melody coming towards me opened up like a rip in the fabric around me, leading up into this brilliant, ultra-real valley. Flowers, blossoms, buds on trees opening up, rich textures, colors beyond the rainbow, with millions of butterflies looping in this wonderful river of life and color. And the way to make sense of it was to look back over 6,000 years of human history and realize that there is a destiny coming together now. And the 20th century was a necessary sidestep. But it's now time for science and spirituality to come back together. And it is all for a reason.
So Eben Alexander is a noted neurosurgeon, and his is a very singular personal experience, but he does talk about the idea of science and spirituality needing to come together. And I want to talk about the science. So Patricia, are you satisfied that there's enough science done yet?
I would say that God probably doesn't want you to know he exists 100%. And so there always has to be an element of ambiguity in human experience. And I think what's happening right now is there's 30 collaborating hospitals around the world right now, for instance, that they're putting tiles on the ceilings of the cardiac wards with pictures that you can't see unless you went out of body. And so they're trying to catch it. Right. And so they have people who come and have these near-death experiences, and the physicians will tell you that they have a lot of extraordinary detail about what they're seeing when they experience themselves as out of body. There's a lot of doctors walking around who are secretly really freaked out, I think. because they, you know, it's in the detail, right? But I suspect that they won't catch it.
I have had a near-death experience, and I was gang raped when I was 19, and I left my body, and I could see completely without any emotion whatsoever everything that was happening in the room, who the men were, and stories about them, which I was able to corroborate later with people who knew them. And it left me with a capacity to tune into this one mind. I believe that we are never really going to know. I'm selfish. I want science to say, Colette, you're real, 1,000%. You know? But I believe in the mystery. I believe in this mystical thing.
Is this proof of an afterlife that we question? Emery, you've had near-death experiences.
After a hysterectomy when I was about 28, I started bleeding internally. I didn't see any white light. My only thought was, I hope I don't see my father, who had died before this experience. But I had 3 young children, and so that's why I felt I don't want to see my father. I didn't rise above and see anything. I didn't see any white light. I felt present, although all of this stuff was going on around me. So I believe in the afterlife, not because of the white light, because I didn't see it. I believe because my grandmother believed. I was with my grandmother when she died. She had told me that she had a near-death experience, and she saw a valley, and she saw beautiful green fields. And so I believe because I want to believe. I want to believe that I will see her again.
Dr. Raymond Moody Jr. wrote an interesting book called Life After Life, and then he followed it with another book that talked about discussions on life after life. Both of those books are very interesting, talking about out-of-body experiences. And I find it fascinating, but cannot bring within myself to participate in this.
But here's something interesting. Moody is now researching shared death experiences. So he's now looking at people who are at the bedside, whether they're the nurses or the family members, who totally unexpectedly find themselves having the same experiences as the person who's biologically dissolving.
We mustn't underestimate the extraordinary power of the mind, of the brain, to generate all kinds of experiences. The very idea of believing in God makes no sense to me whatever. And the imagination of what it would mean to believe in God and in an afterlife, to me, is absolutely terrifying. For one thing, the afterlife, an eternal life, would be unbelievably boring. Secondly, it would make everything...
We don't know what it is. How do you know?
How do you know that?
Because anything is boring if it goes on forever.
Conrad, what are you making of the whole idea of, is there an afterlife? Is any of these near-death experiences or communications with the beyond influencing you in any way?
Rather confirming what my views were. If I don't want to sound, overly worldly here. I mean, it's a little like Coleridge's willing suspension of disbelief, except it's a flip side of it, You haven't made yourself an absolute helpless, gullible slave of any cranky theory that comes around, and goodness knows there's no shortage of them. But there are spiritual forces in the world, and I think that case can be made, Ron, and I don't think it can be contradicted on the basis that you did it, because I think with the utmost respect, and as I speak as an ex-atheist with a great feeling of solidarity for atheists, and taking up slightly on your point, I'm like Woody Allen. I was brought up in a household of acute religious conflict because my father was an atheist and my mother was an agnostic. And that was meant to be a joke by Woody Allen, but it actually was a conflict.
I was looking for that.
And I, within reason, I respect everyone's belief, including a complete absence of belief. But I don't think atheism makes it. I just don't think it makes it. And everything that everybody has said at this panel, it sounds perfectly sensible to me. And it's religion's like sex. I mean, people should do whatever works for them and avoid what they don't like, and be discreet about their views and respect the views of others.
Okay. I just felt the ratings go up right there when you said that. I don't know what that was, but Kathleen, do you believe?
I do. I guess it started when my mom died when I was 18. Which was hugely traumatic for me. We were very close, and it was one of those things where I could never imagine life without her, and then suddenly life was without her. But there were some extraordinary experiences right after she died that were kind of, they were so poetic and just too much synchronicity, and maybe, you know, it's a choice to read into them, but I think they were real. I think it was her real presence. And since then, I've actually seen some psychics through my life at various points, and she's always present, she's always there. And actually, at one point, I was dating somebody who was very psychic, as it turned out. It was kind of bizarre at times. But she said to me once that she always knew when I was coming over, because my mom would arrive first.
Wow. Cool. I'm not a medium, but television is. Okay. I'm going to see you. I'm going to tell you the future. We're going to be back in 3.5 minutes exactly. So stay with us.
Can I just tell you that I'm connecting? Did your husband pass?
Yes.
Is your
2.5
husband?
years
Okay.
ago.
He never told you you were beautiful enough. He never told you that he was attracted to you, and he couldn't have tied his shoelaces without you, and he wants you to know you were the best wife, and he didn't deserve you one bit. You said goodbye. You don't have to feel guilty anymore. It's been 3.5 years. Is this right?
2.5 years.
Okay, I'm not God. Close enough. He's actually a funny kind of character. I'm tuned into him. It's like, I get why you loved him. He could be, but he can also be very cruel, and that's what he wants to say to you.
He was verbally cruel.
Yeah, but that's abuse.
Yeah.
He's claiming it. He is claiming that he was abusive to you and you didn't deserve it. Can I hug you? Because your husband says he never did that enough. And is it okay? Is it okay? Because you're very tactile and oh.
Welcome back. So one of the things we'd like to talk about is how the idea of angels or the afterlife, or the lack thereof, affect the way we live now.
But the bottom line is that there's always help there. And so I think the sense presence experience, whether you believe it's a neurological experience or whether you believe it's a spiritual experience, I think is a way that people can access help when they need it most in their lives. And I think that's a profound kind of awareness. Angels aren't capable of saving every one of us. Sometimes perhaps a religious person will tell you, a person of faith, it's their time. Perhaps the angel's doing the right thing by not intervening to save them at that moment. That's maybe a spiritual
Well, we have a reverend at the table. Todd?
The only problem that people typically have with an authoritarian God is that he's in authority. It's much easier to worship yourself than it is to worship a God who's in authority and can tell you what to do and what not to do. So to me, this issue has no teeth if it's separated from what we're supposedly going to discuss now. What are the ramifications? If God exists, how then shall I live?
Why does God have to be that old man in
I'm not saying it has to.
Yeah,
I'm saying, is it?
Is it? Well, I'd love to know that too, because I believe in a higher power.
Right.
I believe that if the ego was the thing that ran the planet, we would be in, well, that is why we're all in trouble, thanks. You know, but I feel there must be a higher power. What that higher power is, I don't know, and I don't believe in a God of the Bible.
But this is the age-old question at the root of spiritual inquiry. If that deity exists, can it be known? Has that deity revealed itself? Does it continue to reveal itself? And then you get into the subject of textual criticism. Do you believe the Quran or not? Do you believe the Torah or not? Do you believe the Bible or not? Do you believe nothing? Okay, do you believe Plato or Aristotle? To what are you appealing? You appeal to some kind of authority when you frame your worldview, your perspective. What is that authority, and where does that lead you? And then what is your accountability to that authority? That's where the conversation gets really interesting.
But can you deal with the human discomfort with the concept of the infinite without a deity? I mean, can you intellectually? I would ask you too.
The origin of life is something that we do not yet understand.
But my point is, if I may, how do you deal with our inability intellectually to grasp the infinite other than by filling that vacuum with some sort of deity? And there's a very broad definition of what a deity can be. It isn't, as you said, some old man who made us look like him.
Isn't it true?
No one's
But I don't
at this
know
table's talking about
our
that.
inability to grasp the infinite, because the fact is that mathematicians do grasp not only the infinite, but an infinite number of levels of infinity. Those infinities have nothing to do with the so-called infinity of God. They're mathematical concepts, which, oddly enough, mathematicians do get.
Bertrand Russell's theory that there's a finite amount of knowledge in the universe, and every day we're getting closer to it, is rubbish. It's absolute rubbish.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Well, I don't think these mathematicians are fine. And to say we know that infinity is followed by further infinities is no solution to the riddle of infinity.
Many people who have had, experiences with near-death experiences or with angels or whatever we want to call them, tend to, according to the study, come back. And if they were religious, they don't go to church so much anymore, but they do find a higher spirituality. So
they have found a higher spirituality. So the experience itself is so powerful, particularly with deeper near-death experiences, where they are encountering something that is a light that is also love, that is sentient, that is powerful. There's a real complexity to the mix of the experience. The studies that have been done for the most part show that the majority of them realize that the doctrine that they've been schooled in since childhood is a little off.
Doesn't work for them anymore.
Well, no.
Yeah.
I mean, the core principles of the doctrine work. That love is charity and faith and so on are what the prophets were trying to say originally, that still works, but not the layers.
Does it make you feel now that there's proof of an afterlife?
Yeah, I would have to say so, although I don't know whether the afterlife is the right term for it, because I don't think we die and then we live a different thing. I think that there's something about a transmutation of that again, it's like you when you look at this and you look really deeply at it, then you start to get stuck on the language. But yes.
So Colette, just does knowing the way you do change how you feel about death?
I'm not afraid to die, but it makes me want to live a better life, because the only messages I have ever brought through were those asking forgiveness and to give forgiveness, and the messages have only been about supporting the person to live a better life. Right. And I think that I don't believe we die. Whether there's a heaven or a hell, I'm confused. I want somebody to explain it to me, but I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is something that happens after we die, and it's important that we live a life with good orderly direction, do no harm, and live the golden rule. And we are all responsible. That's what I believe.
Well, and that seems to be, if there's one narrative thread that underscores all of the stories about angels and near-death experiences and even religion, is that we could all use a little bit more love. And maybe we'll have to help to create some heaven on earth, right?
That's right.
Okay. So when we come back, an angelic piece of music for solo violin performed by our resident violinist, panelist, and classical DJ. Kind of sounds good, eh? Classical DJ. Kathleen Kajioka. Stay with us. We're going to be Bach in a minuet. Oh. I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it.
The piece that I'm going to play was written in the 1670s, and it's the last in a series of sonatas for violin, and they're known as the Mystery Sonatas, written by Heinrich Ignaz Franz von Bieber. All of the pieces have etchings. The final piece is the Passacaglia for solo violin, so it's the only piece with violin alone, and the picture is an etching of a guardian angel. And it's understood that the constant presence of the angel is represented by the four-note motif that begins the piece and is there right through until the end.
I was just someone who could go someplace emotional with the music. And that's what made me dance. And that was the only reason I ever danced.
Conrad, have you seen Kain dance?
Many times.
Oh, yes.
And I also know her socially, and she's just as charming in person as she is as a performer.
She is absolutely charming. And we have a lot to be proud of with the National Ballet of Canada, right? We're world-renowned as our company, and still taking center stage with Kain, of course. And she's one of the very few female artistic directors in the world, and she's hitting it out of the park. I think she's enjoying a massive reinvention in this new role. Take a look. Karen, let's start right at the beginning. You know, your first inspiration or opportunity to become a dancer. How did it all happen?
Ironically, it was because of Celia Franca. Celia Franca, who founded the National Ballet of Canada in
63 years ago? Or was it 63 now?
Almost 63 years ago, yes. And I believe it was my 8th birthday that my parents took me to the ballet because I wanted to see one in Hamilton. We lived in Ancaster. We went in and we saw it, and Celia Franca was dancing Giselle, and I said, that's what I want to do. My parents had never heard of Canada's National Ballet School. We didn't know it, I didn't know it. But I was sent there, and I got in there, and I had scholarships for much of it because my parents had 4 kids to raise, and they couldn't afford it. So it was serendipity. It was good luck. It was
hard work.
It was hard work, but if you don't, as a ballet dancer, if you don't have the opportunity to train at the right age, you won't be able to have a career in ballet.
How do you become, I mean, you start off in the corps, then you're a principal dancer if we're lucky, and then you're a prima ballerina. What happens in that transition? Are you secretly knighted somewhere? How do you become the prima ballerina?
It actually doesn't exist. I mean, it's something that you don't, it's not in your contract. It's something that people may start to call you or may decide that you are. In our world, you're a corps de ballet, or you're a soloist, or you're a principal. And there's no designation prima ballerina. That's sometimes ballerinas like to call themselves prima ballerinas, but that is not cool in this day and age.
Given all the ballets you've performed, do you have a Pavlovian body memory? Like if you're shopping for Christmas and you hear the Nutcracker come on, what happens?
Well, some music right away I can remember all the steps, and I really sometimes have this argument with my husband because he puts on the radio and we're driving somewhere, and it's the potion scene from Romeo and Juliet. And it brings back the emotional memory of where I had to go as an actress to do the potion scene in Romeo and Juliet, and I can't listen to it. I get emotional, I get stressed. It's just, those things have such deep internal memories. Right. And my feet, I sort of can remember the choreography, but it's more the emotional thing that I feel with certain music, because I went there so many times. It's like Pavlova, you know, the instinct comes right back. But I am much more able to watch ballets that I did now, and I've deconditioned myself to having too emotional a response to them, so that I can be more objective in what I'm looking at.
Right. I remember you being such a wonderful emotional dancer, and was that part of what the magic was with you and Nuria, for example?
I was just someone who could go someplace emotional with the music, and that's what made me dance, and that was the only reason I ever danced. And I loved acting. I loved immersing myself in a character because it took away my shyness, it took away my self-consciousness, it took away my judgment of what I was doing, and I could just become a character. And for me, that was the most satisfying part of dancing.
Well, what was it like dancing with Nuria then?
He would insist that we would be emotionally involved dancing together, and then I could forget it all. And I was too tall for him, and he didn't care. He said I made him dance bigger, and he just said, you just keep looking me in the eye. And then it was fine. Then all the pressure went away, and we created something between us that was important to the audience, and that was one of the biggest lessons he taught me.
And as you said, the physicality of the dancers is different now.
I think they are just like athletes. They push harder, they go longer. The demands of the choreography is much greater, and we see it happening everywhere.
We've got Swan Lake this season.
Swan Lake, and this version of Swan Lake.
Dance your last Swan Lake. I still remember it.
Oh.
In that audience. I mean, that ovation went on for, I don't even know, I think they're still clapping.
It was so long ago. and I didn't dance this version of Swan Lake, and this version of Swan Lake is even more demanding physically, on not just the leads, but the entire company.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
And that's just the way James Skadelka decided to do it. He decided to make not just the principals and some of the soloists dance a lot and really physically, but to have the entire corps de ballet much more physicalized.
Right. If you had to think about your legacy, were there moments when you look back that you would think, these are defining moments for me, these are the moments that of which I'm most proud?
Well, there were times in my career where I came to the attention of Canadians for various reasons, and I guess the most important one was winning a medal in Moscow way back in '73 with Frank Augustine, where Canadians kind of didn't even know about Frank and I, and that was the thing. I guess the legacy is that we can produce artists in the ballet world of a caliber that we can all be proud of, and that sort of Canadians noticed that, not that they hadn't before, but maybe on a bigger scale because people were writing about it, talking about it. But what I really hope my legacy is leaving the National Ballet of Canada in really strong shape for the future, and something that will be protected and will be appreciated in an ongoing way, even after I've gone.
But you're not thinking about leaving anytime soon.
Well, I'm not thinking about it anytime soon, but, we all have to retire someday.
Women are certainly as competent as men, and the end of their long era of disqualification doubles the number of candidates for almost all important positions in the civilized world. I cannot believe that anyone still believes that women are incapable of taking on the most challenging executive positions, but I do remember in the days before Golda Meir, Indira Gandhi, and Margaret Thatcher, when that was a widely held view. It is particularly striking that the chair of the U.S. Federal Reserve is Janet Yellen, and of the International Monetary Fund is Christine Lagarde, and that Madame Lagarde won that position when the incumbent Dominique Strauss-Kahn had to retire after accusations against him of sexually assaulting a hotel maid in New York, charges that were dropped but were durably damaging to him. The world's most capable leader of a large country is almost certainly now Angela Merkel of Germany. Under her leadership, Germany has become more preeminent in Europe than ever in its history, and by the most benign methods. A good fiscal example, diligence in industry, and assistance to the less financially disciplined European countries, provided they do what Germany itself has done. No one ever claimed women could walk on water. Christina Kirchner has failed as president of Argentina, as Julia Gillard did as prime minister of Australia, and the jury is out on Dilma Rousseff of Brazil. Chile's very successful former president Michelle Bachelet is being brought back for another term. Women are certainly as competent as men, and the end of their long era of disqualification doubles the number of candidates for almost all important positions in the civilized world. It is certain to raise the quality of high office holders.
Okay, after that, I've made up my mind. I'm running for office.
You've got my vote if it's the right office.
Pope, what do you think?
You'd be a dark horse.
Okay. Yeah, good luck with that. Okay, thanks, audience. Today, the audience receives a gift from your friend Michael Coram, sent over a box of books. There you go, The Future
Very
of
spiritual
Catholicism.
man.
Next week, we're going to talk about alternative medicine. We're going to see you next week. Let's zoom out. Thank you, everyone. Well done. Good job.